Alright, what is up guys? I'm back for yet another Zoids review. As promised, we are here with the iconic, the mainstay, the cash cow, the Liger Zero. And you would think, again, that this would be like the default go-to, like the first HMM kit that I would ever buy because it is the fan favorite and it is the protagonist Zoid. But believe it or not, that wasn't the case. I'm not actually the biggest fan of the Liger Zero, and I didn't actually find this kit until about maybe 8 months ago or so at Second and Charles. I found someone had traded in their built, fully built kit of the Liger Zero plus the customized parts of the Jaeger armor and the Panzer armor, and I'll be reviewing those in separate videos as well. And I kind of wish I had done this review prior to moving out into the new house, because my brother, when we were kids, got the Hasbro motorized Liger Zero as well as the Hasbro action figure Liger Zero. And so what I wanted to do with this video was to do a video mainly talking about the Liger Zero from a storyline standpoint and a lore standpoint, and comparing those three together, and then doing separate videos for the armor permutations later on, because I didn't want to do one long video with all three armor pieces, or else that would be a really long video. And besides, I don't have the Schneider armor, and I have not built the motorized Liger Zero X yet, which I probably will do very soon. So let's go ahead and talk about this, guys. So the Liger Zero was first invented for the anime line, so we did not get a Liger Zero model kit until 1999, and that was the motorized kit, which is exactly the same, of course, as the Hasbro kit that you got. So there is no vintage Liger Zero. It was invented specifically for the anime, much like the Blade Liger, Geno Sword, Geno Breaker, Berserk Fury. Whereas most of the other Zoids had a vintage version that they were based off of from the OJR release or from the comics or something like that. So like the Saber Tiger, Darkhorn, all those different Zoids had even the Shield Liger had a vintage 80s version, whereas the Liger Zero does not. It's purely a product of the anime. And so as far as the lore, I'll go ahead and start talking about that. It's quite an undertaking to talk about the lore for this Zoid, but I've always kind of felt like the Liger Zero is very similar to the RX-78 Gundam in a way, because it is, of course, the protagonist. It's meant to be very sleek and very unique and specialized, and it's meant to be sort of this protagonist ace sort of thing that nobody else has, that gives him a unique advantage. And it's also like a total, like, Deus Ex Machina kind of, this thing came out of nowhere at just the right time kind of thing. And to me, it kind of ruins the dynamic of a sort of military style setting where you have this trump card, this MacGuffin that is just hyper powerful, and it's meant to be, stylish and sleek, and it has an unfair advantage against its opponent. And I've talked about this before, but it really kind of does bother me, where it's like the two factions are not really on an even playing field. It's like the protagonist is able to just maul through like hordes of enemy units, enemy mechs, until the enemy faction brings out a super weapon, and that pretty much puts the protagonist on their back foot. And it's this formula that repeats over and over again. And that's the case with a lot of Gundam and a lot of Zoids as far as the Liger Zero is concerned as well. Now, do I think that the Liger Zero's design is appealing? Absolutely. It's sexy as hell. Like, all the proportions are nice. It is very sleek and narrow, and it looks good from pretty much every single angle. Like, it really does look cool, and it does deserve to be sort of the staple iconic Zoid that you think of when you think about Zoids, and it is the one thing that 90% of people, especially the more casual fans, are the most familiar with when it comes to this, which is probably why the HMM Liger Zero sells as well as it does, is because there is a dedicated fan base for this thing out there, primarily, again, the casual fans that saw New Century Zero and, to a lesser extent, Fusers, but we'll kind of talk about that. So in terms of the manga, believe it or not, the Liger Zero appears in both the New Century Zero manga and the Chaotic Century manga. I couldn't even believe that when I read it, but sure enough, it does make an appearance in there, even though canonically the Liger Zero has no appearance in the Chaotic Century anime, and does not appear until, of course, the New Century Zero anime, where Big Cloud, who I guess is like a junk hauler at that point, stumbles upon the Blitz team in an encounter with an enemy team where they get their ass handed to them, and he's like, I want to fight kind of thing, and I could be misremembering this. Feel free to wreck me over the coals in the comments if I get any of this wrong. It's been a long time since I've seen New Century, but I did try to watch it within the last 8 years. I want to say I watched it. And so it's not like I'm remembering when it was on TV almost 18 years ago, but so he's like, I want to fight with you guys, and so they're like, well, we don't have any spare Zoids for you to fight with except for this thing, and this thing is wild and ornery, and it doesn't want to cooperate with us, and nobody can pilot this thing. And the idea is the Liger Zero is sort of feral and wild. It's a one of a kind. There's no other that are like it. But it has the rest of the Blitz team kind of dismiss it as useless, although later on they kind of concede once Bit masters it that it has an enormous hidden potential, which is sort of the reoccurring theme of the Liger Zero. So he eventually pilots it. It is equipped with no weapons to speak of except for the underbarrel 2-barrel shot cannon right here, which is pretty standard on every Liger, even though it's a little bit different on the Liger Zero than it is on the Shield Liger and its evolution line. No weapons to speak of, but he is able to utilize the signature attack of the Liger Zero, which is where these vents on the side come out. Of course, I can't move this one past the shoulder pad because of the way the head is positioned. But these vents on the side come out. You can see it on the box art there, where the vents open up and it charges the claws with energy, and he performs the signature strike laser claw attack, which, as you can see again on the box art, can easily tear through many different Zoids. And this box art is actually based off of the very first episode where they go against the Tigers team, and he completely rips off the claw, or completely rips off the arm of a saber tiger, completely off. And so quite a powerful attack that can pretty much cut through anything, very similar to the Blade Liger's blade attack, but a little bit more directed and less versatile, I would say. And this sort of became the shonen attack of the day kind of thing, like Ichigo's Bankai or Inuyasha with Windscar, or you name it. Like it's the shonen, I'm gonna say the name of my big attack, strike laser claw, like that was kind of the thing. And so that sort of, albeit pretty cliche but still pretty fun sort of thing, ended up being the calling card for a lot of anime fans to feel right at home with New Century Zero. So throughout the rest of the series, Bit becomes, of course, very adept with the Liger Zero, and there's a lot of opponents that pose a very unique threat to the Blitz team throughout the tournament and offer their own unique challenges. And so what they decided to do was outfit the Liger Zero with modular armor in order to enhance and allow it to combat those different types of opponents. And so for, I think it's the Taskers team that uses the Lightning Sykes, one of, again, the fastest Zoids ever made, as we learned in the Lightning Sykes video, and the numerous times I've used the Lightning Sykes in the Zoids Versus games and talked about that. The Lightning Sykes was incredibly fast, as we saw in the Chaotic Century anime, and so in order to combat that, they made a Liger Zero variant that was built for speed, and that was the Jaeger armor in blue. And of course, I do have the customized parts for that, so we'll see a video on that soon. And then we had a armor permutation that was designed for melee combat to fight some of the very tough and very big Zoids he would go up against, and that was the orange armor, the Schneider armor, which had a set of blades it would deploy on the side and a sort of a funnel blade array that would connect at the front to create like a point, head battering ram kind of thing to penetrate enemy Zoids with the head of the Zoid. And that was very effective in defeating the Elefander, which was an incredibly tough opponent that they went up against in New Century Zero. And I haven't really talked about the Elefander too much in any of these videos because I don't own a model kit of it, and I don't really intend on owning one, but the Elefander also does not appear in Chaotic Century at all, and I rarely ever use it in the video games. But I've talked about the Elefander, using the Schneider armor after getting their asses handed to them by the Elefander. He's able to use the Schneider armor to cut the trunk of it clean off, which I think is showcased on the artwork of one of the Schneider armor kits. And then the former member of Blitz Team, spoilers by the way, the former member of Blitz Team, Leon, leaving after the events of the early episodes, finally returns with his Shield Liger upgraded into a Blade Liger. And not just any Blade Liger, but a red Blade Liger, which captivated younger me and made me want the red Blade Liger kit so much. And probably one of the next HMM reviews you're going to see is the HMM Red Blade Liger, which we'll get to that. And so the Blade Liger being incredibly formidable, as we learned in the various reviews of that I've done, and in the Chaotic Century anime, left them no choice but to deploy the Schneider armor against the Blade Liger, and it managed to come out on top. Much to my dismay, but I suppose he has to because he's the protagonist. I always kind of had a little bittersweet resentment for the Schneider armor because it was able to defeat the Blade Liger, but the Schneider armor does look pretty badass. And then the final armor permutation for New Century Zero was the Panzer armor, which was a heavy artillery ranged configuration, and the Panzer armor was so heavy with its heavy armor plating that he had a very hard time actually getting the motors and servos in the Liger Zero's legs to work, and it was unable to move. It was basically rendered immobile by the sheer weight of the Panzer armor. But the cannons on the Panzer armor are no joke, and the armor plating definitely came in handy a little bit until he eventually just discarded it and fought without it. The Liger Zero discards its armor quite a bit, actually, and there is, no pun intended there, and there is in fact, in the final battle against the Berserk Fury, we see basically just the raw Zoid itself with all of the white pieces taken off, and that was sort of built into the marketing with the kit itself. The Hasbro really latched onto the Liger Zero with the marketing of the Hasbro Zoids Build, Customize, Mobilize lineup, and really made it sort of the poster child of that, which is why it's on the cover of Zoids Battle Legends, even though it's not really seen very much in that game, and that game is not really about the story of the New Century Zero anime. Again, it was meant to be. A lot of people say, especially people that know about Zoids in a more casual sense and don't really know about the lore and haven't really seen the anime, just usually chalk up the Liger Zero as a cash cow and as something that was designed to sell toys, which you could make that argument. They did not use the Liger Zero as a cash cow nearly as much as they could, because the American marketing for Zoids didn't really have as much of an impact over the creative influence on the series and the story as it could have with New Century Zero. New Century Zero is pretty much already made in Japan. Now, New Century Zero, although it's probably one of the most recognizable and iconic and popular series out of all of them, I think everyone pretty much unanimously agrees that Chaotic Century is the better anime and has more of a story. New Century Zero has borderline no story to it whatsoever and is basically just one long tournament arc, which again, not a bad idea, not something that was really lost on the intended audience when this came over to the US, so not really a big deal there, but the transparency with the marketing to sell toys and be geared towards kids was not lost on the audience when Fusers came out. So in Zoids Fusers, Liger Zero is yet again the protagonist Ace Zoid belonging to RD. But whereas you could make tenuous connections between the canon of Chaotic Century and New Century Zero with little hints here and there, and also kind of justify why Bit has the Liger Zero, you can't really explain why RD has it. He just kind of does. The same thing with the Berserk Fury and his rival, and I think it was basically one of those things of like, hey, we're going to set this up with the toys that you already have, and we're just going to get you ready for the new ones that are going to come out. So essentially, the only gimmick that they had with Fusers was, again, all of the Zoids that would combine together, which was kind of a clunky and poorly executed mechanic in the Fusers era, and then they had more alternate forms for the Liger Zero. So we had the Liger Zero Phoenix and the Liger Zero Falcon. And I think the Liger Zero Phoenix is pretty cool. It's grown on me a little bit. It is the most powerful Zoid in the Zoids Versus games. And I think especially the white Liger Zero Phoenix or the blue one looks really cool. I'm not that big of a fan of the orange one that is the canon color, so to speak. But there is also not a high-end master model Liger Zero Phoenix. It only exists as a Hasbro or Takara Tomy motorized kit that goes with the motorized Liger Zero. So that would be it for the Liger Zero in terms of the anime. Now, in terms of the battle story, which ties in a little bit to the Zoids Versus games, the Liger Zero had a lot going on. So the Liger Zero was invented very late in the canon of the battle story in the year 2100, and it was actually a prototype by the Empire, actually, that was stolen by the Halic Republic and developed into the Liger Zero. I can't remember the team of Liger Zeros that went to the Dark Continent or whatever. It was like something Ray was the name of that team. I'm sure somebody will know in the comments and be able to correct me. But they went there, and of course, as per the tie-in with the anime, their main objective was to take out the Berserk Fury, so on and so on. And I like the idea of the Liger Zero as a mass-produced military Zoid, because from a mechanical standpoint, from a lore standpoint in terms of the Zoid itself and its capabilities, it really is a highly modifiable blank slate. And that really translates well in the video games. Before I get too far off on the rails with that, there is a Empire Liger Zero. The Hasbro and Takara Tomy motorized Liger Zero X kit comes with the Empire color armor for your motorized Liger Zero, and so you guys will be able to see that when I finally do that review. And then the Liger Zero X is considered an Empire Zoid. And then we also did get an HMM Liger Zero Empire, which was a Kotobukiya store exclusive that came out around the end of 2018, and it is now very hard to find. I highly, highly regret not pre-ordering it, because an unbuilt one goes easily for over $200 on eBay now. But I really, 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 really wanted the Empire Liger Zero HMM more than this one, as a matter of fact, and that was how I was originally planning on getting a HMM Liger Zero for this review, is with the Empire one. But when it became so hard to find, I eventually just kind of gave up on that and settled for this convenient, already built one that I found at Second and Charles, like I talked about. So, as per the video games, you do fight Empire Ligers on that faction occasionally. Usually you have some pretty high-tier Zoids to fight them with by that time, such as the Koenig Wolf. But the cool thing about the Liger Zero in the video game is it doesn't come across as overly powerful, even though, again, protagonist Ace Zoid. It is very responsive and very maneuverable, but not overly so. It doesn't have an obscene amount of health or damage output. Because of the nature of how clunky the EX attacks are in the Zoids Versus games, the Strike Laser Claw is not something you can just spam or really utilize very well at all, because you have to have low health to even use it. And so you rely on sort of the variety of ranged attacks and ranged weapons that can be equipped to the Liger Zero, and I'm happy to say that Zoids Battle Legends and the Zoids Versus trilogy have quite a wide variety of those, including the long-range rifle and the dual sniper rifle. There's a huge variety of good range weapons that can be equipped to the Liger Zero, which kind of makes it, again, a nice military blank slate. And it is just kind of an all-around good jack-of-all-trades Zoid in that game, and it definitely justifies the price of how much it costs to buy one inside the game. So I think that kind of ties into how it is canonically represented in terms of the battle story. That was definitely their goal as far as that goes, for it to be, again, a jack of all trades, very specialized, but very sort of modular and customizable special forces Zoid, I guess you could say. So that about does it for the lore. That was definitely a mouthful, and I'm sure I forgot numerous other things as well. But onto kind of the model kit itself. So to compare this one to the Hasbro motorized one that my brother had when we were kids, the high-end master model, it's very nice. You guys don't need me to tell you that. It is a very, very, very nice kit because it is an HMM. And I like this one quite a bit. It is very stable. I, of course, did not build it. The previous owner built it, but I did have to reassemble all of the main chunks of it together, like the torso to the legs and the head and so on, when I initially picked it up from Second and Charles, because the guy had to disassemble it into chunks in order to get it back in the box, which is fine. But so I did have to assemble it a little bit, and I can kind of speak to its construction, and of course it is very well designed. The only thing I will say is that it uses the exact same level of like translucency with the plastic and the exact same color of white as the Hasbro motorized one did. And I know you guys can't really tell on the video, can't really see that, but it really is exactly the same as the Hasbro one. And to me, I think that because it's somewhat translucent in places, it looks like it may be prone to yellowing, and I'm a little worried about that, and I'm worried about how much light kind of shines through it. And so I wish that there was an option to have one that was a more pearl white, like kind of a bluish white almost, that was a little bit softer and did not allow the translucency to show through a little bit more. I think that would be much more appealing. But the white and the black does look good, and the red caps look good. It's very, very sleek, very simplistic. The big thing about the HMM that's different is really the head. And I talked about this a lot with the Blade Liger review, where we did the HMM and motorized comparison. But the head is sort of made to be more proportionate with the rest of the body. It's kind of slimmed down a little bit, and it really does look good. I don't think there was really anything that was done to the Liger Zero that was like, oh, hey, that's a really big stylistic change, kind of like we'd had with the Command Wolf, where the Command Wolf has all those previously unknown and unseen elements added to the design. The Liger Zero here was really not redesigned at all, and I think that was because it was so heavily drawn and represented in the media that there was really no need for it. They wanted to just make it as canon as possible and just clean up a couple of things. Does the cockpit... Oh, the cockpit is just... So that actually is a difference right there. So on the motorized version, the cockpit is this entire, like from where my finger is up here to where my thumb is down here, that entire section would rotate out to reveal the pilot, but on the HMM, it's just this piece right here, and reveals there is a little mini bit in there, very small, a little bit more detailed than the Hasbro one. Actually, I think the Hasbro one just has a regular Android pilot, but the what do you call it? The action figure one has an actual little bit in there. And of course, you have a flap down here that deploys just alongside the... Oops, I just took it off. I'm an idiot. Let's see if I can get it back on there without having anything else snap off. Oh, that was nice. The side... Again, you have great articulation across this whole kit. The side flaps open up to do the whole strike laser claw thing like we see on the box art. The boosters have a little bit of articulation, and they open and close as you would expect. You have the little... these flaps on the side here deploy down, and those are stabilizers for the boosters. They're not blades. They actually addressed that in like the second episode of the anime. They're like, are those blades on the side? No, they're just stabilizers for the boosters and that kind of thing. The articulation on the tail is a little wild, and you're probably like, why didn't you straighten that out for this video? But it kind of has to be articulated upright just a little bit to fit it back in the glass display case. So it is what it is. This particular print of the HMM Liger Zero is fairly modern. I would say it's within the last 5 years or so. It's not super old. There are older versions of it. And it is one that is regularly reprinted to the point where I can't even keep track of all the different print runs of the Liger Zero HMM that are out there. You can pretty much always find this guy in stock on all of the major Zoids websites that I go on. Finding the HMM Liger Zero and the armor permutations in stock is almost a guarantee on any of those sites. It is really not hard to find at all. It's one of the easiest HMM kits to find because it's probably one of the most popular. And it's one of those where they just keep making more because they know that as long as there are Zoids fans, there are going to be Liger Zero fans, and there's going to be a market for this guy, especially with the customizing community, there are some wonderful, just beautiful customized pieces on the Zoids collectors group from people all around the world, particularly in Southeast Asia. And yeah, people have gotten really creative with this guy and done some really wonderful things. In terms of the different model kits that are out there for this guy, of course, like I said, there are several different printings of the Takara Tomy motorized one in white. There's also, of course, the Holotech one that's clear. There is the Empire one in the US. I think all we had was there was 2 printings of the Hasbro one. There was a translucent Holotech one, and there was, of course, the Liger Zero X, which there was actually 2 printings of the Liger Zero X as well. There was one in 2002 for the Build Customized Mobilized line, and one for Fusers as well, which has the blue box, which is the one I'm going to be building and reviewing, but those 2 kits are exactly the same. And I guess, of course, the HMM as well has this one and like a Markings Plus version, and I think there might be a clear HMM version as well. I'm like 90% sure that there is. And of course, you can buy this by itself and then buy the armor permutations as separate kits. So you can buy the customized parts just by themselves, similar to how I bought the Sturm unit for the Berserk Fury. Or you can buy an actual full kit that is just the Jaeger or just the Schneider or whatever. And that might be, if I do decide to get a Schneider, that might be how I do it. So I can have this one with either the Jaeger or the Panzer and then have a full Schneider kit. And so you'll see that. I would very much caution you guys in terms of bootlegs when it comes to those. So you want to be careful that if you're looking on eBay or whatever for one that is a full in-box, like Liger Zero plus Jaeger or Liger Zero plus Schneider, whatever, that it's authentic. So pay close attention to the box and make sure you're not buying a bootleg. So I think that about does it for this video, guys. I'm sure I forgot a ton of things, but I will try to do another video if I can get my hands on my brother's motorized one and his action figure one and do a comparison. And we'll be back sometime much later for the Jaeger and then again for the Panzer. And then as well for the Liger Zero X and Empire Liger, which those 2 will probably just be one video because they come in the same box. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.